today I want to talk about how to lose fat without losing your mind to hunger. Because here's the thing, we're all told in order to lose fat, you gotta be in a calorie deficit, which is technically true, though that's a whole other discussion. But the way most people approach a calorie deficit tends to make them very hungry, to the point where the calorie deficit can be very unsustainable, or at the very least just a miserable experience. And when the process that you're using to approach fat loss is miserable and just makes you feel horrible, that's when you can start having really negative associations with tracking calories, with exercise, with all of these various things that you're doing to achieve fat loss that otherwise you could look at objectively as tools. But when these tools start making you feel like they're hurting you, you start to develop a bad relationship with food and health and weight loss and all of that stuff. So I just want to give you some super solid tips on how to approach not being hungry while being in a calorie deficit. So let's get right into it. Give this video a thumbs up if you're excited to learn how to eat in a calorie deficit without getting super hungry. Hit that subscribe button for more videos. And the first tip that I have that I want to talk about is one that kind of blew my mind. Not gonna lie, I originally made this list of like my top tips, and I was like, let's see what Google has to say. Let's see if there's any other like solid tips out here that I want to share. And I found something that was just like, it makes sense when you think about it, but at the same time it's also like, whoa. And that is that how you perceive the food that you're eating affects how satiating it will be. One would think that you can't really trick the body, and that the more you eat, the more satiated you will feel. But this might not necessarily be true. There was a fascinating study done at Yale in 2011 where they took two groups of participants, gave them all a 380 calorie milkshake. But half the participants received this milkshake in packaging that suggested it was a 620 calorie indulgent milkshake. And the other half of the participants received the same milkshake in packaging that suggested it was a 140 calorie healthy, sensible milkshake. They had both groups of participants observe the packaging and rate the packaging just to make them look at the packaging, and then drink the milkshake and rate the milkshake, etc. But what they measured was ghrelin levels. Now, ghrelin is the hunger hormone, so when you're satiated, ghrelin should decrease. And what they found is the group that thought that they were consuming like 4 times more calories had a much steeper decrease in ghrelin after consuming the milkshake. This means that their mental state of thinking that they were consuming more calories made them physiologically feel more full and less hungry. And this wasn't just psychological perception of hunger. This was the body's physiological response to that psychological perception that they were eating more. Basically, the group that thought that they were consuming the indulgent milkshake with a lot more calories felt a lot more satiated. And the implications of this are wild, because that means that, let's say you're eating a 1800 calorie diet and you're telling yourself that you're only eating diet foods. Like, let's say you're only eating like egg whites, chicken breast, brown rice, and broccoli. If you're eating the same number of macronutrients, calories, nutrition as someone who's instead eating that same amount, but having a burger or having delicious chocolate smoothies, or whatever other foods that you perceive as more indulgent but still hit the same macro requirements, that person who's eating all the more indulgent foods is going to feel more satiated, even though they're eating the same amount. And again, it won't just be psychological satiation. It will be literally your body decreasing ghrelin levels, like decreasing your physiological hunger, because mentally you are perceiving that you are getting more indulgent, delicious meals. This is why finding that balance is so key. So I guess the main takeaway from this point is that your mindset really does matter. And be aware of how you are mentally perceiving your diet or whatever you're following to be in a calorie deficit. Because if you're coming at it from a place of, I'm restricting myself, you're going to feel more hungry than if you're coming at it from a place of, I'm using this as a tool, I'm gonna eat what I want, puzzle it together, make it fit. I'm gonna eat some of my favorite foods and it's still gonna be okay. My next tip is gonna sound like a super obvious, maybe even kind of dumb one, but it's worth being said because this is where a lot of people mess up, and that is, make sure you're eating enough. Like, a calorie deficit isn't just about cutting as many calories as you can. It's about cutting enough calories to be in a deficit for effective weight loss, but having enough fuel to keep your energy up, keep your workout performance up, keep your hunger levels low. The less you eat, the hungrier you're gonna be, and the harder it's going to be to stick to what you're trying to do. If you cut too many calories, it's gonna be unsustainable. You're not gonna be able to stick with it. You're gonna yo-yo back and forth. You're gonna make no progress, and it won't be worth it. You're just gonna be going in and out of states of misery. So start small with your deficit. It's okay if you're making slow progress, because slow progress is better than the no progress you get when you yo-yo back and forth. Tip number 3 is to eat an appropriate and satiating macro ratio. Yes, calories are king when it comes to weight loss, but macros make a huge difference. First of all, make sure you're getting enough protein. I'll link my full video about what enough protein means down in the description box below. But when it comes to hunger, protein is so satiating. There's quite a bit of research to suggest that higher protein diets are much higher on the satiety end of the scale compared with lower protein diets. And then when it comes to carbs and fats, finding the balance that works best for you is going to be the best. There's this beautiful thing called bio-individuality. This ratio is going to vary from person to person. Some people are gonna feel a lot more full, a lot more satiated on a higher fat diet. Some people are gonna feel a lot more full and a lot more satiated on a higher carb diet. Experiment, play around with it. If you're currently eating a certain way and you're feeling hungry all the time, switch it up. Just because you heard or read somewhere that one macro ratio is better for fat loss than another doesn't necessarily mean that that 100% applies to you, because it does come down to how well you are personally able to apply that. So play around and experiment. There's no right answer. The only right answer is what works for you. And then also another important thing to consider when it comes to macro ratio is that consuming enough fat, enough protein, and enough fiber is really key for blood sugar regulation. If you're consuming basically like pure refined carbs, your blood sugar is going to be all over the place, which is going to make you very hungry. Because when you eat meals that cause your blood sugar to spike, basically meals that are not balanced, meals that tend to lean towards more like refined carbohydrates, your blood sugar spikes. Then it crashes. The crash in blood sugar is what drives more hunger, which is gonna make it harder for you to hit your macros or stay in a calorie deficit. And then speaking of fiber, my next tip is to focus on more nutrient-dense, high-volume foods. So these are gonna be things like vegetables, lots of kale, things that are generally very high in fiber. Fiber just takes up more space in your stomach. The more stretched your stomach is, the stronger the signal is to the brain that you are full. Also, increase in fiber decreases the speed of gastric emptying, which basically means stuff just stays in your stomach longer, keeping you fuller for longer. A recent review looked at satiety when fiber is increased through things like beans, chickpeas, lentils, those legumes, and they found that that could increase the feeling of fullness by 31%. Compared to meals that were not based around fibrous beans. But also, the nutrient-dense part of the high-volume nutrient-dense foods is also important, because when you're cutting calories, you're also cutting out available nutrients. Even if you're eating the most nutrient-dense diet possible, you're still consuming fewer nutrients than you were when you were eating at maintenance calories. Eating fewer micronutrients is just going to naturally increase your body's drive to get in more foods to fill in those nutritional gaps. So consuming enough micronutrients is key to reducing cravings and keeping hunger more at bay. This next tip is a big one. And by a big one, I mean the last couple were kind of like foundational, the basics, like eat enough. This tip is what's really going to tip the scale for you if it's not something that you're already doing. And that is to manage your stress. Stress drives your drive to eat, both mentally and physically. It's a double whammy. If you got stress going on, both your brain and your body are gonna be like, go eat all of the things. There's a lot of research to back up the idea that high cortisol drives food cravings and desire to eat. There's a really interesting study done in 2012 that took a group of participants and gave them stressful tests and non-stressful control tests, and then allowed them to eat afterwards. And they found that after these stressful tests, participants ate an average of 22% more. And this is afterwards. Like, they're done with the test, but that stress that they experienced during the more stressful test still drove them to eat more afterwards. And I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but a calorie deficit is also a stressor on the body. It causes your body to produce more cortisol. So just by virtue of being in a calorie deficit, you are stressing your body out to a certain extent. And if you have extra stress on top of that, it's gonna be real hard to not feel hungry. So managing your stress is key. One of my personal absolute favorite ways to reduce stress is breath work. Just like 2 minutes of box breathing where you inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4 is great for just like shoving your body back into a parasympathetic state. But also things like meditation, journaling, yoga, mindfulness practices, gratitude practices, all of those things are also great at lowering overall stress. Making to-do lists, cutting out toxic people from your life, all that good stuff. There's also a great number of supplements you can add to support your body as well. As you guys know, my approach to supplements is I don't really like relying on any, but if my body's in a state where it could use just a little extra hug, a little extra support, like when it's in a calorie deficit and you're already stressing it out by increasing your cortisol by being in a calorie deficit, that's a great time to add supplements in. Some of my favorite supplements to help support your body when it's stressed are, as you guys know, ashwagandha, one of my faves. Can't talk about stress without talking about ashwagandha. I'm also still taking and absolutely love that adrenal support supplement from Symbiotica that I talked about a couple weeks ago. And then another one of my absolute favorites that I've been using and absolutely loving for the last couple of years now is the Ned hemp oil. Here's the thing with CBD is people make crazy claims about all the amazing things that it can do. Like if you read about it, it kind of sounds like a weird magical cure-all. It sounds way too good to be true. It all sounds like lies. But here's the thing, if you look into the research, I have a whole video about how CBD works in the body, by the way. If you're interested, I'll link to that down in the description box. It's actually fascinating when you get into it. But the short of it is that the body naturally produces its own cannabinoids called endocannabinoids. And our body also has cannabinoid receptors, the CB1 and CB2 receptors. These receptors are found in almost every single system in the body. So in that way, the phytocannabinoids found in the hemp plant can interact with our own endogenous cannabinoid system and balance basically every system in the body. That's why you see such pervasive benefits from using a full spectrum CBD oil. And then specifically when it comes to stress, there are CB1 and CB2 receptors found in the central nervous system. And so when you take a full spectrum CBD oil, the CBD, CBG, CBGA, all of the different phytocannabinoids can come into the body and modulate those CB1 and CB2 receptors to balance things out. To be fair, a lot of the research on CBD is quite new, but it's all fascinating and super exciting. CBD is personally where I start if I know I'm gonna be experiencing higher stress than normal. Like if I had something coming up where like I have to work really hard for a week and I know I'm gonna be stressed, I'm gonna be taking my CBD regularly throughout that time. It's also something I'm adding back in more regularly as I am in my own calorie deficit. Not just to modulate hunger, but also generally just to manage stress and be a little bit more gentle on my body. And if you do want to check out CBD extracts, highly recommend looking into Ned. They are the best brand on the market. Like the quality is impeccable. You can get a lot of really, really bad quality CBD. A lot of the bad experiences people have with it often come from just poorly sourced, low quality brands. But the Ned hemp oil is full spectrum. It's grown on an organic small farm in Colorado. They use a slow cold extraction process to make sure they're getting all of the possible benefits out of the plant without causing any damage to any of the ingredients and thus reducing their efficacy. I tried so many different CBD brands. Let me tell you, when I first started having health issues, I was like, I want to give this a try. And I tried so many brands and none of them did literally anything. And then I started taking Ned. And I don't want to say it changed my life because that sounds dramatic, but like it kind of was dramatic. Like I had horrible insomnia. This helped me actually be able to feel like a human when I woke up in the morning rather than just a straight up zombie. So I can't say enough good things about it. If you want to check it out, link in the description. Code FitAndNerdy will get you 15% off any order from Ned or 20% off of their membership. So if you want to make hemp products a regular thing in your life, that's where you should go. It's dripping cold water all over my legs, which honestly is not the worst thing because it's very hot in here. My next tip, don't drink your calories, but do drink your water. Liquid calories, not satiating, because it's not solid food. You're gonna get real hungry real quick if you're drinking all your calories. Soylent is not a fat loss food. Neither are meal replacement shakes or protein shakes. Eat a chicken breast. You'll feel a lot fuller a lot longer. It's pretty obvious that this would happen, but there was a study where they took participants and gave them either a semi-solid snack or a liquid snack. Those who had the liquid snack got a lot hungrier a lot faster. Go figure. So don't drink your calories, eat solid food instead if you can. Drink water, but here's the thing about water. Don't use water to starve yourself. I see people all the time saying, use water to not get hungry. If you're feeling hungry, drink water. If you're feeling hungry, eat. Don't just be sitting there starving, chugging water, thinking it's gonna make you lose fat. Talked about healthy relationship with fat loss and food earlier. This is one of the key things. But water can help you with a couple things. It can help with the boredom snacking. Maybe you're not actually hungry, you're just bored. If you're bored, drinking water gives you something to do. It can increase satiety because it does stretch the stomach more. And as I said before, the more you stretch the stomach, the fuller you are. It also helps replace the non-nutritive liquid calories and inflammatory liquid calories. Everyone needs to stay hydrated. Most people drink something throughout the day, but if the something that you're drinking is something that's going to be inflammatory or give you non-nutritive calories, as in basically empty calories that don't confer any nutritional value, that's not really helpful for your fat loss progress. It's basically consuming liquid calories. Water can also, interestingly enough, help manage stress. As we just talked about, stress makes you overeat. Dehydration increases your body's production of cortisol. So as long as you stay hydrated, you can help keep some of that dehydration stress at bay. Next tip is one that if you know my channel, you knew it was gonna be in here from the start, and that is sleep. Get your sleep, get enough sleep, get good quality sleep. Go to bed. All of you people watching this at 3 a.m., go to sleep. First of all, I think most of us have felt the effects of lack of sleep and our hunger. You get one less hour of sleep and the next day you suddenly want to eat everything in sight. This isn't something you're imagining. This is very, very real. One night of sleep deprivation makes us as insulin resistant as a person with type 2 diabetes. That means blood sugar crashes all the time, which means you want to eat everything because your body needs all of the energy. Sleep deprivation also decreases glucose utilization in the brain. This is going to mean your brain is going to drive you to eat more glucose to get more energy. Glucose found in sugar. You're gonna have all the cravings for all the donuts. Poor sleep also downregulates leptin, which is the satiating hormone, upregulates ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. Research also shows that individuals who sleep less than 7 hours per night rate their fullness after breakfast as 26% lower than those who get more sleep. So if you're not sleeping enough, you're literally just making yourself hungry. And like, how sad of an existence is that? Like, you could feel 26% more full eating your breakfast if you got more sleep. If you're struggling with sleep, I recently made a whole video about all of my tips and tricks and my nighttime routine to get an amazing night's sleep, so I will leave a link to that down in the description box. My last tip is a little bit of a cheeky one. I just kind of threw it in there because, again, this is something that I Googled. I was like, what does the internet have to say? And it gave this suggestion and I liked it because it's me. And this is something that I would totally just use as an excuse to eat more of this. But dark chocolate can apparently help with hunger. Maybe that's why I like ending my night with dark chocolate. Maybe subconsciously I realized that it actually just kind of cuts off my hunger signals. That, or I've just had a big dinner and I have dessert and then my brain's like, okay, we're done. So this isn't like an actual tip, more of me just justifying my crippling chocolate addiction. But apparently there's a compound in chocolate that actually slows gastric emptying, which, like fiber, means that you are going to keep more in your stomach longer, which means you're going to stay fuller longer. Also, apparently just smelling it can greatly reduce your hunger. There was a study that showed that people who smelled dark chocolate had their appetite decrease just as much as those who ate it. So maybe this is not me justifying my crippling chocolate addiction because I could just be smelling it, but I'm gonna keep eating it anyway because I like it. So those are my tips for you for how to manage hunger while you are actively trying to lose fat. Hopefully the main takeaway from this video is that you should not be cripplingly hungry if you are trying to lose fat. A little bit of hunger to be expected, normal, that's fine. If you're just like starving and miserable, not fine. Not normal. You absolutely should not have to feel that way in order to lose fat. Oh, actually, one more big tip. If you have to eat so little to lose fat that you are literally starving because you're eating 1,200 calories, reverse diet. I'll link my whole playlist on reverse dieting down in the description box. Like, if you're not starting from a baseline of having a healthy calorie intake for maintenance to begin with, you're setting yourself up for failure. So get yourself up to that, then implement these tips. Should have been tip number 1, my bad. If you guys have any more tips, please leave them down in the description box below. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. It really does support me and my channel. I really genuinely appreciate it. Please share this video with your friends, your family, and your neighbors. If you want to see more videos from me all about health and fitness, you can check them out over here. To see future videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the little notification bell so you get notified when I post a video, and I will see you very soon.